Today we can see 7 continents encircling our lovely planet. What if the globe didn't have any continents though? The 7 continents, Asia, Australia, North and South America, Africa, Europe, and Antarctica, are visible when you look at Earth. But this wasn't always the case though. The 7 continents of Earth did not exist about 300 million years ago. Instead, it possessed Panthalassa, a single ocean that ringed Pangaea, a huge supercontinent. Pangaea was the only continent on Earth until around 200 million years ago, during the Triassic epoch. It then started to break apart. Lorraine and Gondwanaland were created when Pangaea was split into 2 continents. Pretty interesting, isn't it? But what scientists had discovered underwater seems to be even more interesting than this. Want to know more about it? In today's video, we will uncover scientists' new underwater discoveries that will probably change everything. But before getting started, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. Let's get started.
This is Techtastic.
Now you will be shocked to know the history of Gondwanaland and Lorraine. The smaller continent Lorraine moved northward during the Triassic epoch and eventually split off into what is now known as Europe, Asia, and North America. Gondwana, the larger continent, split into the present-day continents of South America, Africa, Australia, Antarctica, the Indian subcontinent, and the Arabian Peninsula, which together make up approximately 2/3 of the present-day continent. Many people are unaware that Gondwanaland also split into a second piece, which researchers discovered 375 years later to become the 8th continent, and which had been waiting for them under the ocean all along. So how did this continent form? What lived there in the past? And how long has it been underwater? Abel Tasman, a Dutch explorer, was on a mission in 1642. The seasoned Dutch sailor was convinced that the southern hemisphere had a massive continent, and he was determined to find it. Europeans had an unwavering belief that there must be a sizable landmass there, which they preemptively named Terra Australia, to balance out their own continent in the north. Tasman gave the tragic location the ironic name Murderer's Bay and sailed home a few weeks later without even having set foot on this new continent. Although he believed he had found the large southern continent, it was obviously not the commercial paradise he had envisioned. He never returned. Australia had already been discovered by this point, but the Europeans did not believe it to be the legendary land. Zealandia, which is roughly 6 times the size of Madagascar and spans 8-9 million square miles, made headlines when a team of geologists announced their discovery of it. The team boldly declared that there are more than 7 continents, even though encyclopedias, maps, and search engines have long maintained that there are only 7. But as we can see now, there are actually 8 of them, and the most recent one is the smallest, thinnest, and youngest in the entire world, breaking all previous records. Only a few islands, including New Zealand, rise up from the ocean's depths to make up 94% of it. It had been hiding in plain sight all along, but that was just the beginning. In addition to New Zealand, the continent also includes Lord Howe Island and Ball's Pyramid, 2 minor Australian territories, as well as the island of New Caledonia, a French colony known for its beautiful lagoons. Its secrets were fiercely guarded beneath 6,560 feet of water, one of the largest marine domains in the world. 5 years later, the continent is still a mystery. One 18th century explorer claimed that the latter appeared now no longer to be larger than a canoe. Zealandia became previously part of Gondwana, a supercontinent that as soon as included everything of the southern hemisphere and became shaped around 550 million years ago. It became positioned in a nook on the eastern side, bordering some of the different countries, such as the entirety of Australia and half of West Antarctica. Then 105 million years ago, Zealandia started to be dragged apart in step with experts due to a system that we nevertheless do not absolutely understand. Now moving forward, I have a question for you guys. Do you have any idea about the oceanic crust and continental crust? Why am I asking you this question? Well, it's obviously related to our video, so let's see how. The continental crust is often about 40 kilometers deep compared to the oceanic crust, which is typically about 10 kilometers thick. The tension stretched the Zealandia, and now it is barely 20 degrees deep in the crust. The ultra-thin continents eventually submerged, though not to the level of normal oceanic crust. Geologists recognize Zealandia as a continent, but it is thin and submerged due to the type of rock found there. Granite, shale, and limestone are common examples of metamorphic and sedimentary rocks found in continental crust, while basalts are more commonly found on the ocean floor. But there is still much variability. The eighth continent is of particular interest to geologists and somewhat confusing because of its unique beginnings. For example, it is still unclear how the very thin Zealandia maintained its integrity and did not break up into many microcontinents that were too small. Another open question is when exactly Zealandia was submerged and whether dry land existed there. The ridge that is now above sea level was formed when the Australian and Pacific tectonic plates collided. It matters who lives there. As a result, Gondwana itself became a habitat for diverse flora and fauna, first populated by its four-legged land animals and later by the largest creature ever to live, the Titanosaurus. It also had a temperate climate and covered an area of 39 million square miles. Therefore, should their preserved stays be scattered throughout the rocks of Zealandia? The stays of numerous fossilized land animals were discovered in New Zealand in the 1990s, including the rib bone of a massive long-tailed, long-necked dinosaur, a sauropod, a beaky herbivorous dinosaur, a hypsilophodon, and an armed dinosaur, an ankylosaur. Fossilized land animals are rarely found in the southern hemisphere. Then in 2006, a few 500 miles east of the South Island, the foot bone of a giant predator, probably a form of Allosaurus, was found. Importantly, all the fossils were created after Zealandia separated from Gondwana. These islands can also additionally have served centuries while the rest of Zealandia became drowned as it's far now. Thus, this doesn't always mean that dinosaurs were wandering throughout maximum of Zealandia. Rupert Sutherland, a professor of geophysics and tectonics at the Victoria University of Wellington, says there is a prolonged argument, approximately whether or not it's far feasible to have land animals without non-stop land and whether they might have perished without it. Do you want to know what complicated the plot of our story? A clumsy, flightless bird with whiskers and feathers resembling hair. The kiwi was one of New Zealand's strangest and most revered residents, which complicated the plot. Interestingly, its closest relatives are not believed to be reapers who belonged to the same group as Latites and lived on the same island until they went extinct 500 years ago. Instead, scientists believe their closest relatives are the even larger elephant birds that roam Madagascar's forests up to 800 years ago. Scientists now believe that both birds descended from a single ancestor that lived in Gondwana, which took 130 million years to completely disappear as a result of their discovery. But then it left what became South America, Africa, Madagascar, Antarctica, Australia, the Arabian Peninsula, the Indian subcontinent, and Zealandia. It is believed that the entire continent and possibly even New Zealand was submerged about 25 million years ago. After that, it was assumed that all flora and fauna were colonized. But what exactly happened? Although it is not possible to obtain fossils directly from Zealandia's seafloor, researchers they have begun drilling into its depths. Fossils found in very shallow waters are the most useful and distinctive. Millions and millions of very tiny fossils are distinctly different, which is why they set the record. Zealandia's shape is another unsolved mystery. It has two prominent features on the geological map of New Zealand, a plate boundary that runs along the South Island and is so significant that it can be seen from space, and one of these called the Alpine Fault. Second, New Zealand's geology, like that of the entire continent, is strangely curved. But what made scientists think about the discovery? The Pacific and Australian tectonic plates collided, separating both along the horizon. The formerly continuous bands of granite are no longer aligned and are now effectively perpendicular, as if someone grabbed the lower half and turned away at exactly this point. Displaced and out of shape is the obvious explanation. However, the exact details of when and how this happened remain an unsolved question. There are various theories about its interpretation, but there are still many unclear points. According to Sutherland, it's unlikely that all the secrets of this continent will be revealed anytime soon. All of which it's 2 kilometers away, including 2 miles underwater. The required layer sample is located 500 meters below the seafloor, 1,640 feet. Gaining insight is very difficult, he says. Exploring such a continent is very difficult. Therefore, it would take a lot of time, money, and effort to send ships to an otherwise surveyed area. It proves that there are many. And that's the end, guys. Scientists have shocked the whole world with their perspectives and discoveries, but truly said, gaining insight is almost impossible. But what are your thoughts on it? Do you believe that this will create a positive impact on Earth? Please let us know your views in the comment section below, and if you like our work, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching.